Hi, I'm Mr. Huber, and in this video we're going to look at problem 2a. Sine of x is 1/2. Sine of x is 1/2. Now please, work out all the possible solutions in radians. Don't forget to make a sketch. Well, you see sine of x and sine of alpha. This means degree measure if nothing is specified, and here this is the radian measure if you have an x here. This is just an agreement amongst us. Well, but it says on the exercise that you have to work in radians. So that's quite important to know, because you have to set your calculator shift setup to radians, to the radian measure. So you have to have a little tiny r up here. But this is a value we know, 1/2. Okay, now look, sine 1/2, that means pi over 6 or 30 degrees. So x is arc sine of 1/2. This is something you should know by heart. So it's pi over 6, which corresponds to 30 degrees. I'm just drawing this into my unit circle with 30 degrees more or less. And look, this here is pi over 6. And look, this was 1/2. Sine is 1/2. So this is 1/2. So this is 30 degrees, but we're working in the radian measure. So this length, this arc length, is pi over 6. This is your sine value. This is your cosine value. So this is a value you have to know by heart. Sine of 1/2 means that x is pi over 6. So you have this point here, plus k times 2 pi, full turns. When you work in degree measure, you have to add full turns in degrees, well, plus k times 360 degrees. But now here it's 2 pi, 1 full turn, plus minus 2 pi, well, that's, you go with k is an element of z, because you have positive and negative numbers here. And then, you see, over here, you do have another 0.5, and you know in the degree measure this would be 150 degrees, or 180 minus 30, 180 minus 30. So in this case, it's pi minus pi over 6 plus k times 2 pi. This is obviously 5 pi over 6, because this is 6 pi over 6 minus 1 pi over 6, it's just 5 pi over 6 plus k times 2 pi. K, an element of z. And now you have all the infinitely many solutions. X is pi over 6 plus k times 2 pi, and x is 5 pi over 6 plus k times 2 pi, with k an element of z. And these are your solutions. Now look, let's highlight this in red. This is pi over 6, and this wiggly line here, this would be 5 pi over 6. Because, look, here, let's use another color, here, this is also the length of pi over 6. So you subtract pi over 6 from pi. So pi minus pi over 6, then you get this wiggly part here, which is 5 pi over 6. Well, if you had worked in the degree measure, sine alpha is 1/2, you would have done it like this. Alpha is 30 degrees plus k times 360 degrees, and alpha is 180 minus 30, so 150 degrees plus k times 360 degrees. K, an element of z. So this would have been the solution when you work in degree measure. or in degrees. But here we work with radians, so that's why we have to write it up like this. Well, please know one thing, you don't have to have a sheet like this. You could always do it by just making a quick hand sketch, and then you say, well, this is 1, 1, and this is 0.5. So this will be your 30-degree angle, or this is going to be your pi over 6, which corresponds to 30 degrees. And then this wiggly line here corresponds to 5 pi over 6. So you have another point on the unit circle with the same sign. This is sine 0.5 and this is sine 0.5. So you have to be able to do it quickly with a hand sketch. But well, clearly it comes in handy if you have a nicely pre-drawn circle. So I hope it wasn't too difficult. See you in the next one.